Okay, so our topic is the temperance movement and morality policing. This is by Sarah and Angelina. So an overview of this topic is that the temperance movement had been an active movement in the United States since the 1830s with the goal of discouraging alcohol use. The temperance movement started because the consumption of alcohol was associated with social ills such as poverty and insanity. At first, the temperance movement was only about discouraging alcohol consumption, but by the late 19th century, it was about banning alcohol consumption altogether. This was called the Prohibition movement, and this was aimed at controlling liquor distillers and their connection with politicians. And this later became a national movement when the 18th Amendment was passed in 1918, banning the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages. This ban on alcohol was enforced by people called morality police, but their efforts failed since people such as bootleggers and speakeasies were made, which allowed people to traffic or smuggle alcohol and drink it illegally. And by the 1930s, many Americans were tired of this movement, and the 18th Amendment was repealed.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about Frances Willard, who was, I guess you could say, one of the bigger temperance advocates. She was a part of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which was a group of women who wanted to get rid of what they called demon rum or alcohol. And so they basically brought in Frances Willard to speak on their behalf. She was the second president. And she used a lot of her words to speak to the people in order to change their minds on an opinion on alcohol. She even one time was able to get 100,000 signatures in order for women to be able to vote on what happens with the alcohol and where it goes. And she would use quotes like, "Temperance is moderation in the things that are good and total abstinence from the things that are foul," which basically means that temperance is a way to abstain from having that foul and demon-like alcohol in your system, which makes people do bad things. Whereas if you don't and you abstain from drinking that alcohol, you're more likely to do better things. Then we have the historical connection, and the first thing I think of would have to be the Tea Act. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of similarities between the two. You have the Tea Act, which basically was an act that they placed on tea out of nowhere. They decided they wanted to place this act on tea, and obviously people were not happy about it, just like with the temperance movement, how they wanted to limit the amount of alcohol people drank, which people also did not like. These were very well-used things, and to take that away from people really made them upset. Then I also think of the Boston Tea Party and how people stood up by basically rebelling against the government and destroying all this tea and smuggling in more tea, just like the speakeasies would do with alcohol.